I was a fat kid, like I was proper fat.
I wouldn't have guessed.
So when I was like 18, I was like 108 kilos.
No.
On this frame, which today is 65, right? So,
Are you serious?
Yeah. When I joined Lockeroom, I started to enjoy the training. Because right now, as a 44-year-old, physically, I feel 28. It's really a tale of kind of overnight success that took 19 years. Really believe in your ability, and the opportunity will come. But you've got to have the courage of your convictions around that as well. I don't want to feel sore and old and frail and what have you. So the more kind of muscle memory I can get into my body now, the better off I'll be. I think there is always something in me that never wanted to go back to being the fat kid.
All right, so welcome to this episode. I'm with Charlie Viola, one of the clients of Lockeroom. Charlie, give us a little bit of background on what you do now and kind of how you built into that, where you kind of started your early career and any other relevant details.
Yeah, well, first, thanks for having me, Lockie.
Don't worry.
So right now, I'm the Managing Director of Pitcher Partners Sydney Wealth Management. We're a high net wealth, ultra high net wealth, small institutional investment management business. We've got about 400 odd private clients. We manage about $3.5 billion of client monies. So, you know, we're acutely aware that we look after a whole bunch of people's kind of life savings. I really enjoy it. I get a huge amount of intellectual stimulation from, you know, talking about investments, talking about where people are in their life, you know, generating revenue streams for them. I've been at work in this business for 19 years. I joined the business in 2003. It's really a tale of kind of overnight success that took 19 years. When I joined the business, there was literally nothing. So I joined what was then an accounting firm. They wanted to start a wealth management or a financial advisory.
Okay.
And I literally joined with the view that they would have a whole bunch of clients to send me, and then I walked in and there was nothing. There was no infrastructure.
Not a single client?
Not a single client, nothing. There was no systems, no infrastructure. And you know, I literally started with a desk and a phone book. And
Just you? They didn't bring you in some other staff?
No. So there was an existing guy, Martin, who's still there today.
Okay.
And he's a really good guy. We've worked together. I've seen more of him in the last 19 years than I've seen anybody else. And we have very complementary skill set.
Yeah.
He's very much become our CIO or Chief Investment Officer. I've very much become the client guy and the market-facing guy. But when I walked in, he said, "Mate, you're gonna absolutely have to, you know, go out and catch and kill if you want to eat." So, you know, the first 6 or 8 weeks, I literally, you know, cried myself to sleep every night. I had no clients, we had no revenue. I rang people out of the phone book, like literally rang people out of the phone book.
Wow.
And then, you know, found a couple of centres of influence that started sending us work, and then found a niche market in company executives and investment bankers, and then probably realised the power of my own brand, I think. You know, so I've probably spent a lot of time in the last 8 or 10 years really trying to get the market to understand, you know, what my value proposition is, who I am, you know, why I like the investment journey, how we add value to clients, and it's really worked.
Yeah.
So before I joined this practice, I worked in the bank as a financial advisor in the bank, and you know, even at a really young age, I was reasonably successful there because I don't know, I've got very few skills in life, Lockie, but I think
Driving.
I can drive cars really fast, which is kind of a good one to have when you're
Driving, bench press, I know those two.
Yeah. But building rapport with people is probably one.
Okay.
You know? And making complex things seem simple is probably one. So from an early point in life, I was able to kind of talk to people, build rapport, kind of gain their trust. So I had a good job at CBA. I was quite young. But I always felt like I wanted to do more, wanted to own my own business, wanted to sort of set my own destiny. So I moved out, and it was very much going from what I say, going from the zoo, where they keep throwing us food over the fence, to the jungle, where like you kind of have this kind of like oh shit moment, where it's like, well, hang on, there are no clients. You've got to go and find them. So you've got to go and catch your own prey, kind of thing. So, and over the years, you know, we've built great systems. We've got great people who work for us. You know, I'm really indebted to My team that we've sort of managed to build around us, I'm really indebted to Martin. He's kind of stayed the journey over the last kind of 20 odd years. And we've built this fantastic, profitable business where we add real value to clients, where they like us. We spend a lot of time doing due diligence around really good quality assets for people to buy, and we're really big ones for the client service piece. Like, we're really acutely aware that our clients choose us, and there are 15,000 financial advisors in the country. They can go and see anybody they like.
Yeah.
So I'm still really passionate. Even at kind of 44, I'm passionate about the next kind of 10 or 15 years. I'm passionate about the industry. I love having investment discussions. A couple of years ago, I took myself off to MIT in the US just to sit in a room with a whole bunch of private equity and VC managers just to talk about, capital and where it comes from, and I just kind of love the investment discussion. So
yeah. I didn't know all this part of the story, but it's, besides not that it's unimportant, but, if you leave out the part about, obviously Pitcher Partners bring you in and setting up that thing, you basically just built your own business. That's what it sounds like. And you had a business partner, Martin.
Yeah.
Like, dialing from the phone book, every startup can relate to finding their first client. So I didn't realize it started at 0, lower than 0. So
yeah. And I've still got my Rod Tidwell too. So
yeah.
If anyone doesn't know what the Rod
what
Tidwell, the Jerry Maguire movie, where he was a sports agent, and he left the sports agency. So and only one client followed him, and that was Rod Tidwell. So
right.
I still had my Rod Tidwell
nice.
client. So the very first client that I ever signed when I went to, we were called Moore Stevens at the time before, we changed the brand to Pitcher Partners. He's still a client. And he reminds me all the time too. I said, because I'm pretty sure I told him a very different story at the time. Okay. So,
nice.
But yeah, there's some real lessons in that. Number one is really believe in your ability, because there's no doubt for the first 6 months or so, I spent a lot of time going, do I just go back to the bank where it was easy?
Yeah, because you're 25 at this point, right? 24, 25.
Yeah,
you're young.
24,
yeah.
And it was
super young.
Am I shit at this? Well, I'm actually really good and the opportunity will come. Thankfully, I stuck it out and the opportunity absolutely came. And then, momentum built, and, that was really important. And you've got to wait until that momentum comes, but you've got to have the courage of your convictions around that as well. So
there's always, in the entrepreneurial journey, there's always significant, markers where you go, okay, we've made a significant hurdle here or whatever. What was kind of the first one for you? Because obviously you're on the grind for a while, but then when did you go, okay, we've really made a big difference here and it's a big shift in the change of the business? Was it maybe you hired the first staff member, or you took on a certain amount of money for investment, or a certain client came on board, anything like that you can think of?
Oh, I don't know. It just felt like such a gradual thing, to be honest. I certainly wanted to quit every day for the first 6 months. I think once I'd invested 9 or 10 months there, and suddenly I had 8 or 10 new clients over that period. Suddenly I felt like they trusted me, and I couldn't with all good conscience then leave them, because I'd made them a promise. So I do remember after about 12 months going, right, I've got very real money from very real people, and they've got very real trust in me, which means that now I need to make this work. Yeah. And even if I'm not making it work for me, because I could probably go and get a job anywhere, I need to make it work for them because they've genuinely trusted me. And then at that point, we actually hired a staff member to help us. She's actually still there, Emily, my EA. So suddenly people started to rely on us, the clients,
more
staff member. So at that point, it was like, no, dig your heels in to make this work, sort of thing. So, and the rest is history, even though it's 17 years of history or whatever.
Yeah. No, I agree. I definitely think that as the responsibilities of other people's lives depend on you succeeding at what you set out to succeed in, it gets more real and more serious. It's almost
100%.
You can't back out now. You're committed. So along that kind of 17-year path, health and fitness it's always, it's part of everyone's life, but whether it's a priority or not, it just depends on the person. So over the 17 years, where's it kind of sat for you? Because I feel like right now it's very high in the priorities for you. You're at a point in your career, obviously as you get a little bit older as well, health becomes more important. But you've also kind of stayed on top of it. Like you were training before we met you. I know obviously you weren't getting the results that you wanted. But where did it kind of move around and where did it sit throughout sort of that 17-year career so far?
Yeah, I don't know. This is a discussion in psychology as much as anything. I think. Like I think I was a fat kid. Like I was a really fat kid.
Oh, you were fat?
I was fat. Like I was proper fat.
I wouldn't have guessed that. I thought you would have been a skinny kid.
No. I was a fat kid. No, proper fat. So when I was like 18, I was like 108 kilos.
No.
On this frame, which today is 65, right? So
are you serious?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So
that's crazy.
and I think there is always something in me that never wanted to go back to being the fat kid, if I'm really honest.
Yeah.
And so I always maintained a level of exercise just as a means of not being the fat kid, if I'm really honest. And I always felt compelled to do something. And I always felt compelled almost from a sense of kind of guilt. Like if I didn't exercise today or yesterday, I'd feel guilty about it.
Right.
The difference now and the reason, and I had a personal trainer for a while and he was a legend and he was a really good guy and he taught me lots about, personal training and what to do. And then he moved him and his family to Queensland and I did it myself for a while and started to get into the bad habits of kind of not doing as much and wandering around and what have you. What I found was that I kind of almost resented training because I was training so I wouldn't be the fat kid. When I joined Lockeroom, I stopped resenting the training, and that's the big thing.
Interesting.
And I started to enjoy the training, and I started to enjoy being held accountable.
Right.
I think everybody's a little bit different. I'm a bit of a dopamine guy. Like I'm a little bit that, and it kind of goes to why I do motor racing kind of thing, or kind of why I like the win at work. I'm a dopamine guy, and I find that training with guys like your trainers, it probably provides that kind of element of the dopamine hit because they're keeping me accountable. I'm seeing changes, and I've stopped actually resenting training because I'm running away from something else.
Interesting.
Does that sort of make sense?
It makes sense. Yeah, I've followed a similar journey. I was the skinny kid, so like whenever I see myself, I always see the skinny kid in the mirror, and it's like you're always too small, so you need to get bigger. And then I shifted out of that, which I definitely think it's still a part of it, but now it's so routine. I've been doing it for so long that that's kind of not really there anymore. That kind of that trauma or that stick, but now it's more about how can I be as healthy as possible for as long as possible? How can I live like I am now when I'm 60, when I'm 70, when I'm 80, Yep. How can I increase my health span? So it shifts a little bit, but I can completely relate. Like you probably had the moments where you look at yourself and you still kind of feel fat a little bit.
Yeah.
But you're obviously not, but your eyes see what they've seen before and it's like, I don't want to go back there. Like, it gets exaggerated.
It's 100% it. But also the fact that resentment has turned to enjoying it. So it's turned to enjoying it, and it's turned to, because I'm still reasonably structured, I count things for a living kind of thing. I like the structure that the gym provides. I like the fact the programs are written. I like the fact that there is a process to actually follow, because then I feel like I'm achieving something.
Making progress every day.
Yeah, so even now when I train alone, it kind of feels a little kind of pointless because I'm not actually following anything. I'm just kind of going from, the bench press, which, as you can imagine, I do lots of it by myself, to the treadmill.
The bench press.
Yeah, that's right. So I like the structure, and I like the fact that the resentment has turned to enjoyment and progress. And now it's just become, it's become part of my life. And a little bit of that guilt if I don't do it is there, but it's there for kind of the right reasons now rather than the wrong reasons.
Yeah. Well, my observation of you has been I think because you, like you said before earlier, is that you're so good with people. I think the difference now is that training is kind of like you're joining a little community and like you're participating in sort of like a team sport sort of thing. So there's like people and other clients, and then you got the guys there and the girls, and so it feels like you're part of this team. Same way that when you probably do motorsport, right? It's probably like a little crew that you like to go with and people at the track. You feel like part of that community. So I think kind of you've just slotted in so well into that's part of the missing sessions and letting down. But that's been my observation. I think that's why it's gone so well. So walk us through like a day for you. So obviously, from when you wake up to kind of when you go to bed, you've got a lot of things on your plate. What's it looking like for you at the moment?
Yeah, I'm probably going through a little bit of a change in my life at the moment, but a typical day is I'll get into the office about 6:30. I'll look to do
Wow, that's early.
6:30, quarter to 7. I'll do either the 6:55 or the 7:35 session at Lockeroom. Really enjoy it. Like seeing the same faces. Have built real rapport with the trainers. Especially a couple of them. Andy, who's my relationship manager. If I can get him to slow down just a little bit at different times when talks a million miles an hour. Jared, Fids, Jackson. They're all just such good guys, and sort of genuinely care about. Anyway. I do the session. I heard a sportsman once say, "Own the morning, own the day." So I do like to do that kind of morning session, and then I'll finish it. I'll go back to work. I'll get the coffee on the toast on the way through.
Okay.
Andy, who doubles as my nutritionist, tells me I'm still allowed to have the toast. So
okay. You are.
It says to me he's not going to take away the things that I love in life. So it doesn't take away the coffee and toast. And then I get into it from a work point of view.
Yep.
Regardless of kind of what's going on in my life, I'm pretty good at compartmentalising. I'm pretty good at wearing that hat at that time.
Yeah.
I'm very passionate about the business. I'm very passionate about the clients. I wear two hats in our business. I'm the managing director, so run the broader business, but I'm also an advisor where I look after the clients. Most days we'll have at least one or two client meetings, whether via Zoom or face-to-face. I still really enjoy the client interaction. Most days we'll be reviewing existing client portfolios, new investments for clients. And most days we'll take into account at least a team meeting, whether it's from a management team point of view or my servicing team that service my clients.
Yep.
And then depending upon what's happening with my kids and home, I'll actually try and, like for instance, on a Monday, I'll actually do a second session at Lockeroom in the afternoon.
I've seen you on the others.
And the reason I like that is because I actually feel stronger in the afternoon than I do in the morning for whatever reason, whether it's a food intake thing or it's a...
All the research shows, I'll explain it at another time, but yeah, you are stronger, actually, like the science says, you're stronger in the afternoon. It's usually about 2 to 5% stronger on average,
So I'll do that, and then I'll head home. On the days where I don't come into the gym, it's because I'm doing kids and stuff, and whether my son has cricket training or I love my kids, really love them. Love putting them to bed, love doing dinner with them. So I'll do that, and again, I'll do everything I can to kind of compartmentalise at that point and kind of turn the rest of life off just for a little bit and spend time with them. I do have a little bit of habit of being a little bit too close to my phone.
I think we all do at this point.
Yeah. So, and I am a little bit, one thing that I really need to work on is how much I'm connected to, email on my phone and, WhatsApp messages from my friends group and what have you. And I am actively really trying to work on that and trying to work on the relationships in my life, being away from my phone a little bit. So I'll try and put the phone down at a certain point and actually get, a reasonable amount of rest. You guys make me wear the Whoop strap, which, I'm a big one for the kind of study now of how much sleep I'm getting and how much recovery I'm getting and what have you. So, and then, you go to sleep, you get up the next day and you kind of do it all over again.
That's good. Just on the part you said about compartmentalizing things, I actually have noticed consistencies in the most high-performing people in the gym, clients, and then, just influencers around the world they talk specifically about being very good at that. I don't know what it is about using that mental framework, but I think it kind of lends itself to an element of focus. And I notice people that can't do it very well, actually, if something goes on in their personal life, they pull it into work and that get pulled into training. And because they have that bleed over a little bit, everything kind of suffers from one thing. Whereas I think that ability to kind of go, okay, I'm doing this now and just this, is like a common characteristic of high performers. So I think it's a consistency I see. So I don't think it's a bad thing at all. Not that you were saying it was, but so this next part I wanted to cover off was just about retirement. So retirement. So a lot of people there's basically a statement that I'm asking people, and you can agree or disagree with it. But it's just to do with retirement being less about, or the reason that I believe most people retire is not necessarily that they don't like the work they're doing anymore. It's more that their health and their mental capacities can no longer sustain the high output that they need. So I wanted to get your thoughts on it. Do you kind of agree with that? Do you disagree? Do you somewhat disagree? Agree?
Yeah, I mean, let me put my financial advisor hat on.
Yeah.
Well, one of the questions that we ask any new client is, what age would you like for work to be optional, and what level of passive income do you need for work to be optional, right? Because for us, there's almost no such thing as retirement. Let's not forget, you get to 60, you've still got 30 years of life ahead of you, right?
Yeah.
So you've still got 50%
Hopefully.
of your, you've still got anywhere from kind of 35 to 50% of your life ahead of you. So we always frame it through the lens of making work optional, because what we want is we want people to have the financial freedom, because remember, most of us go to work to finance the rest of our life. Most of us have got anxiety about what we earn so that we can pay the mortgage, pay the kids' school fees, buy the cars, and then have a few nice holidays and what have you. What we try and do for people is try and take the anxiety of the money away so that they can feel free to make whatever decision they want at that point in their life, to go and actually do the things that genuinely fulfill them, right? So the lens that I look at retirement, and at 44 I have no interest in retiring anytime soon, but the way I look at it, and the way I look at it for clients, is we want to see them go and do board roles of things that they're interested in and passionate about. We want to see them go and do travel to places that they really wanted to see, and things that they couldn't do when they were busy, paying the mortgage and putting kids through school and whatever else it is. Do I think you lose mental capacity post that, or you can't do the job after that age? That's certainly not been my experience. We've got lots of wealthy, successful people who just make the active decision that it's my time now. And we're big ones for really encouraging people a few years out from retirement to make sure that they've got three things. One, enough money. That's often been our job.
Yep.
Two, sufficient interests. And three, friends at the same point in life.
Interesting.
Because what you never want is for people to suddenly stop working and then have this void or this abyss. Because especially successful people, they will get bored and go mad pretty quick, and that's when you start to see health decline. So we really encourage them, and while our job is not to do the psychology, our job is just to give them mathematical comfort. Yeah. We really encourage them to really think about those two elements of have interests and make sure you're really clear what those interests are, and have friends at the same point in life so that you can share those interests with them.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I had the fourth one of obviously have your health as well.
100%, because you're naturally going to be more able to do all of those things if you have your health.
Yeah.
So, and it's interesting. What's the average age of a locker room member? Do you know?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't have the exact number. I'm sure we could find it, but if I was to guess, I would say it's probably similar age to you, between 40 and 45.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think what it's doing, and I think it's actually really, I think it's one for you to do some research about, because what you're probably doing is you're giving me all the skills now for me to carry those into when I'm 44 to 50 to 55 to 60. Because right now, as a 44-year-old, physically, I feel 28.
Yeah.
So when I'm 55, I want to feel 35, right?
Yeah.
I want to be able to go and do things. I want to be able to go and climb up mountains. I want to be able to go and continue to go and do motor racing. Do you know what I mean? So I want to maintain those interests. I don't want to feel sore and old and frail and what have you. So the more kind of muscle memory I can get into my body now, the better off I'll be.
Yeah, and there's so much, I was even talking about it this morning with watching the World Cup, talking about it with my dad and his friends, and we're talking about, I was asking them the question of, from your observation, these are lifelong football fans, guys in their 60s and 70s, do you think that the average age of the player is getting older and they're performing at a higher level for longer? And they said yes, and it's not that football players and elite athletes are necessarily getting things that the general public don't have, because right now, I'm telling you, a lot of the things that these elite athletes get, we have access to. And so it's really just general technologies that, from medicine to how to train, right, from foods, nutrition standpoint, all that stuff is improving. So I think as long as you're staying on top of that stuff and you're consistently building it into your routine and your habit, there's no reason why you can't be You probably don't know him, but Frank Grillo, I always refer to him. He's 58, but the guy looks like he's 35. He's a Hollywood actor, and he's just always been. It's interesting because he's kind of always been a bit of an outlier Hollywood actor. His career didn't really take off until his 50s, but now he's kind of this. He plays this role as like a kind of evil bad guy Avenger, but a really fit one. So he's actually come into his peak in his 50s, and he would have never been able to pull that off if he'd given up in his 20s and 30s and 40s, right? When most people's careers take off. So he's in the best shape of his life, and because he was never A-list until now, he spent a lot of time in the media, talking on podcasts and talking on videos and stuff, talking about his health and fitness routine. And it's exactly the stuff you're talking about. Win in the morning, wake up early, do the training regardless of how I feel, eat the right foods, stay clean, don't get on the booze too much, like still enjoy life, have friends, all this basic stuff, but just consistently have done it for so long. And you look at this guy and you think, God, if I can look like that at 60, like life's going to be fantastic, you know? Imagine peaking when you're 60, right? This is essentially what this guy's doing. So no, it's good. We can definitely.
There's a piece in there about go and do the training when you don't feel like it. There are heaps of times when the alarm goes off at 6 o'clock or whatever, and you go to get up, you put your feet on the floor and you kind of go, maybe I'll lie back down.
Yeah.
So you've got to get your feet on the floor. Like my only advice to anyone is put your feet on the floor. Once you put your feet on the floor and you get up, you're all right. Yeah. It's when you kind of pick up the phone, turn it off and lie back down again that you're...
It's over. Defeated.
Right.
Yeah. My version of feet on the floor is getting a cold shower. If I don't get in a cold shower, my day is ruined. It's the only thing that wakes me up. It's just like, for whatever reason, I think a lot of people like this, you wake up slowly. Yeah. But for me, if I can get in a cold shower, like I'm ready to go 100%. Yeah. So.
Do you do the cold shower thing? Isn't there there's some scientific, kind of thing out there where if you have a cold shower, it kind of, creates the endorphins and what have you and gets you going.
There's a tremendous amount of research on cold therapy at the moment, and I'm telling you right now, I think even from skin, I think it really helps my skin. Like sometimes I get breakouts. Ever since I had cold showers, doesn't seem to get breakouts. Helps with digestion. I mean, it helps with just like wakefulness. It makes me sleep better in the evenings because I wake up at the right time. So there's ton. I even think so. One of the things it does, it converts white fat cells to brown fat cells, which is like better for your metabolism, makes you leaner. So a lot of benefits to cold showers. But I just do it because I just want to wake up in the morning. Yeah. So Charlie, thanks for coming in. I really appreciate kind of the insights. The last sort of thing that we kind of, or that I'm curious to ask about, we don't even have to include this one, but I am curious and I feel like you're obviously the right person to answer this. There is like a number that gets thrown around depending on who you ask as to like, if you had this much money, you would retire successfully and like you actually wouldn't really need to work again. Some people have said, I've heard people say 10 million, I've heard some people say 20 million, I've heard some people say less than that. What's your answer? And I'm not talking about, going out buying Lamborghinis and flying private jets. I'm just talking about you've paid your house off, you can live on $150,000 a year. Your kids are in school or whatever. Adults, and they can take care of themselves or whatever. It's just you and a partner, maybe. What is that number in your head?
As you can imagine, I've been asked that question.
I'm sure.
Every day.
I'm sure.
Every day for 20 years.
That's why you're qualified to answer it.
Yeah, that's right. And my answer is, of course, it's all relative. Right?
Sure.
And the reason being is you'll often get an investment banker. He's been earning $3 million a year, and he says, I can live on 250 grand a year. And my first answer to that is bullshit.
Right.
Because what happens is that over time, as your income goes up, you float your lifestyle up. Yeah. So remembering that what we're saying to people is that what age would you like for work to be optional? Because you want to give people then the time to go and do all the things that they couldn't do when they were really busy, right? So if you floated your lifestyle up to the point where you need $1 million a year of income to kind of meet your expenditure and what have you, and meet your lifestyle, then you're never going to float it back down to being able to live on 150 grand a year. So my view is that for the last 4 or 5 years of your working career, whatever you are earning and comfortably living on, that's what you need in retirement. Right. Whatever that number is, if that number's 200 grand a year, then mathematically we need about 3.5 to 4 mil. If that number is 500 grand a year, we need 8 to 10 mil. If that number's 120, then we only need 3, right? So it's all a product of, what your expectations are, what you want to do in retirement, what your current living expenses are, because we want retirement to be the absolute best part of your life.
Right.
And therefore, the time to start planning around that stuff is 10 years before or 8 years before, because we're trying to build the bridge between where you are today, where you want to be at some point in the future, and the steps you kind of have to get to be able to have that retirement that you want from a financial perspective. So it will be completely different for everybody, but it'll be a product of the habits that you've developed over the last 8 to 10 years of your life, because habits are very hard to break.
Yeah. So maybe ask a slightly different question. Is there anything amongst the clients that you've worked with that essentially have retired or retired quite early? Any consistencies you see in the way that they view or approach the world that makes them like truly happy? Because I think when you get to a point where you can financially retire and money isn't an issue, you have very different priorities and very different perspectives. Is there any consistencies you find with those people where you're like, oh, that's really interesting insight, as in like, I regret working so hard, or I regret doing this, or I'm going to do more of this now? Is there anything there that you've noticed a trend in?
Yeah, it's funny. I've actually got a story. Macquarie ED retired reasonably early. He was 55. He'd had enough. He had plenty of money or what have you. And I said to him, and I was still only 31 or 32 when he did it. And I said, and I just had my first child. So Christian, my son, was just born, and he was retiring. And I said to him, mate, you're retiring. You've done so well. You've got plenty of money. You're a really good guy, because he was, or he is. And I said, what lesson have you got for me in life? He goes, mate, I've only got one lesson for you. He goes, because I buggered it up. And I went, what's that? He goes, teach your kids the value of money. He said, you could teach your kids the value of money, because if you don't, you'll be paying for it for the rest of your life. So that's one thing. Make sure you give people the sense of relativity. But no, I think the reality is that as people get towards the end of their working careers, the thing that they identified as, and the thing that kind of gave them that real purpose, is starting to kind of, dissipate and go away. And that's difficult for some people. It doesn't matter how much money they've got, it doesn't matter how successful they've been. That kind of sense of purpose that they had, or that sense of identity, it's what I've learned is that they have to find a new sense of identity, and they have to find a new sense of purpose in life. And often it will be the ability to go and do boards, or go and do things that make them feel good about themselves, whether it's charity or whether it's... The second part is the travel bit. The travel becomes really important, which is why that COVID period was so difficult for people, and it was so difficult psychologically, especially for people being stuck in their homes and what have you. And the other one is family. Family becomes, like, I think people go through waves with their family where it's really important when they're young, and then their kids go off and do their own thing, and they see a little bit less of them. And then what tends to happen is, as you get older, your family comes back because they need you more, you've got grandkids and what have you. So I find that all of my clients become really kind of involved and compelled to be part of their family's lives. And it becomes more and more important for them to spend as much time as they can with grandkids and doing all the things that they feel are really important to them.
Yeah, that's interesting, because like even just what the World Cup this year, because it's like it marks like interesting points in your life when you reflect on the World Cup, and the relationship I had with my dad now versus when I had it with him 4 years ago it was that stage where like I was completely doing my own thing. Maybe I'd see him once a month or chat to him, but every single game we're talking about voice messages. Did you see this? What about this goal? We've watched as many games as we could together. We watched the games this morning together, because I think he sort of realized, the next World Cup I'm going to be a bit older, and then it's like, how many World Cups do we have together left? Whereas when you're kind of younger, it's like, oh, we've got so many World Cups. So watch the next one with your dad.
Mate, I'm exactly the same. My son's 13, so it's the first one really where he kind of understands who all the players are, and what teams they play for, and which ones have got big names, and the fact that Morocco are doing, really well, despite the fact that they've got less big names, because they're acting really like a team. And some of the teams like Belgium and a few of the other more favoured teams, where you've got really good individual players but haven't been. So we're having all of those really good kind of life conversations about teamwork and togetherness and spirit and passion and all that sort of stuff. As a result of that kind of nexus point that brings you together, and it's cool. I can't wait to have the conversation with him when he's 17, when he's got a whole different perspective on life, and when he's 21 and when he's 25, and you know what I mean?
So, it is. It's beautiful. It's nice, but Well, we won't go on too much about the World Cup because we'll do it for too long. But Charlie, thanks for coming in. Appreciate it. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Awesome insights. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Welcome back.
Okay. Hair and makeup.
You're never going to get anyone to do anything unless they want to.
And one of the biggest fears I have about being in business, you can take one stupid moment to ruin it all.
Something in me that never wanted to go back to being the fat kid.
I didn't want that. That fear was enough for me to commit to coming to Lockeroom.
Body fat content's gone from almost 30% to about 20.
I started to enjoy the training.
There's always a trainer who can sort of take you from whatever level you're at.
I'm seeing changes. Resentment has turned to enjoying it.
In order to work really well, you've got to take care of yourself.
Big benefit is I don't have that slump in the afternoon.
And if you do prioritise your health, you will actually see the results in your work.
I'm a big believer, if you can't lead yourself, how are you going to lead other people? How are you going to lead the team if you can't even lead yourself?